Again, the gospel is our only hope. Okay? Ephesians 2 verse 1 through 8. I won't read it because it's enough to just make you go, thank God for the gospel. We were dead in our trespasses and sin. Like them, we were objects of the wrath of God. People, let me just say this. Before anyone else tells you what they think the gospel is, the gospel biblically is a problem. We are under the wrath of God if we're in sin. We're not just bad people that need a little bit of help. God will find a way, and there will be a day when we're judged for being in rebellion against the King of Kings. That's the gospel. And Ephesians 2 says we're dead in our sin. You know what dead people do? What do dead people do? Nothing except rot and decay. The only hope, if you read Colossians 1 verse 22 and 23, I can't read this because it's a bit shorter. The only hope we have is the gospel, because listen to what the gospel does. Listen to what the work of Jesus Christ on our behalf does. But now He has reconciled you. God has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in His sight, without blemish and free from accusation. Because once you were alienated from God and you were enemies of God. We realize the depths to which we have fallen when we look at these scriptures. In these scriptures we are struck as if with a hard, blunt instrument by the full weight of truth. Hopelessness as a word does not even measure up to the state in which we are in. But there is a hope. And it's the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the only power. The gospel is the only answer and the only hope, because it has the power to destroy the power of sin, which is the inherent problem that leaves us dead and lost. Romans 1 verse 16, which transformed the whole of the life of Martin Luther and basically brought about the whole Reformation, says the gospel is the power unto salvation, for in it a righteousness from God is revealed. What that means is that in the gospel there's a way to know relationship with God and to be removed from our sin and to live in relationship with God. It has power. Ezekiel 36 again says, there will be a time when I place my spirit in you and I transform you by the power of the work of God. Listen to this. Finally, it's the perfect love. Okay, the scriptures are up there. This is the most wonderful thing to just kind of linger on. If love is the most powerful and most beautiful thing that humans can grasp, then this, the gospel, is the most perfect, the most complete, the most valuable, the most wonderful, the most awe-inspiring display of that most beautiful thing, which is love. Someone of infinite worth, loved by someone with an infinite capacity to love, is given over as an act of love. Do you get that? Someone who is able to love infinitely, beyond anyone's capacity to love someone with such infinite love. It's the most perfect, complete love. And He gives over that someone, He gives over His Son as an act of love so that we can know relationship with God. There is nothing more beautiful than that display of love. You will never, ever get me to give up Malachi for someone I don't even know. Don't even go there. And yet God does it for rebels. Listen to these words. John Piper commenting on Romans 8 verse 32. Would God overcome His cherishing, admiring, treasuring, white-hot, affectionate bond with His Son and deliver Him over to be lied about and betrayed and abandoned and mocked and flogged and beaten and spit on and nailed to a cross and pierced with a sword like an animal being butchered? Would He do that? Would He hand over the Son of His love? If He would, then whatever goal He is pursuing could never be stopped. If that obstacle were overcome in the pursuit of His good, every obstacle would be overcome. He continues to say this. Did He do it? Paul's answer is yes. Romans 8 verse 32. And he puts it negatively and positively. He did not spare him, but He delivered him over. We hear the immensity of the difficulty and the obstacle. God did not delight in the pain and the dishonor of His Son, but He didn't spare him. The greatest, most beautiful act of love. That's why we will value. Sorry, I'm not going to read the whole thing. That's why we will value this perfect and complete gospel. It's the only power, it's the only hope, it's the only answer, and it is the perfect display of love you will ever, ever understand. So how do we value it? Really quickly, we need to believe it. John 20 verse 31, there's two senses there of the word. The word says, these words were done so that you may believe in it, and by believing in it. Belief is not just a one-off event that happened when you're born again. You're not just, oh great, I believe it now. It's a continuous act. We must continue to believe the gospel. Okay? We need to know it. Okay, secondly, how do we value the gospel? We need to know it. Don't just believe the gospel, please. Understand it, learn it, search out to its depths. Let it enter into the very core of you. Read it with your mind, live it out with your heart, but know the scriptures. Know the scriptures about the gospel. Know the gospel story. That's how we're going to value it. We're going to love it. We're going to love the gospel. What that means is that we must be satisfied in this new life that's given to us by the gospel. We must live so that no other thing completes us. We don't need any other thing other than knowing that we were born again through the gospel of Jesus Christ. No other thing should be necessary for you to be happy this morning. Can I say that in an age of consumerism, no other thing should be necessary for us to be happy this morning? Not our health, not our wealth, not our family, not our friends. Nothing should be necessary because the gospel answers it all. And it is the thing that gives us new life. We need to live it, people. We need to live the gospel of Jesus Christ. If you've been born again, there needs to be a radically different life to the old life, or else you're not born again. Maybe I get shot down for saying something like that. But you're brand new, so why would you operate the way you've already operated? It's new, you're new, born again, new spirit, new heart, new life. We need to live the gospel because people are watching us, my friends. More importantly than Billy Graham rocking up and preaching these days, in this generation, it's about people watching your lives for a while and then daring to ask a question because your life is so different. So we need to live the gospel. We need to share the gospel. Okay, this is going to be close to the heart for some people. But if you know the cure for cancer, how could you ever keep it to yourself? If you know the cure for life, heading straight to an eternity without God, you need to share it. I need to share it. I have a lot of new neighbors now. You need to share the gospel with them. You need to speak it. You need to get it into any conversation. I need to get it into any conversation. And I promise you this, we commit to preaching as a church. And finally, this one is just totally out there. How will we value the gospel? I want you to hate one thing. Okay, I'm saying as a leader, you're allowed to hate something. Hate religion. That's how you'll value the gospel. And I finish with these words from Mark Driscoll. The gospel is the polar opposite of religion. Those are my words. They're not as good as the next bit. The gospel is the polar opposite of religion. And Driscoll finishes like this. The great reformer Martin Luther rightly said that as sinners we are prone to pursue a relationship with God in one of two ways. The first is religion / spirituality, and the second is the gospel. The two are opposite in every way imaginable. Religion says this: if we obey God, He'll love us. The gospel says that it is because God has loved us through Jesus that we can now obey Him. Religion says that the world is filled with good people and bad people. The gospel says that the world is filled with bad people who are either repentant or unrepentant. Religion says that you should trust in what you do as a good moral person. The gospel says that you should trust in the perfectly sinless life of Jesus because He alone is the only good and truly moral person who will ever live. The goal of religion is to get from God such things as health, wealth, insight, power, and control. The goal of the gospel is not the gifts God gives, but rather God as the gift given to us by grace. God is the gift of the gospel. Religion is about what I have to do. The gospel is about what I get to do. Religion sees hardship in life as punishment from God. The gospel sees hardship in life as sanctifying affliction that reminds us of Jesus' sufferings and is used by God in love to make us more like Jesus. Religion is about me. The gospel is about Jesus. Religion leads to an uncertainty about how God loves me because I never know if I've done enough to please God. The gospel leads to a certainty about my standing before God because of the finished work of Jesus on my behalf on the cross. Religion ends either in pride, because I think I'm better than other people, or despair, because I continually fall short of God's commands. The gospel ends in humble and confident joy, because of the power of Jesus at work for me, in me, through me, and sometimes in spite of me.